Previously on the Halloween podcast presents Double Vision. After a strange infomercial and a night of heavy drinking, Mason Carter begins seeing horrifying doubles of the people around him. Demons hiding in plain sight, waiting to merge with their hosts. He tries to clean up, gets a job, and pushes Dylan away. But one drink drags him back in. A bar fight with a double confirms the danger is real. The town is changing, fast. With Natalie and Dylan now by his side, Mason kidnaps Mr. Jenkins, one of the first people he saw with a double. Their interrogation works, and what they learn is terrifying. The demons are real. They want to merge, and Mason has one inside him too. They manage to free Jenkins, but he's killed moments later by a fully merged double. Following a cryptic message from Lillian, they track the source of the invasion to an abandoned factory and find a map marked with every infected soul in town. But before they can leave, they're attacked, and Mason, he goes back for the map, alone, and his double wants out. And now, the conclusion of Double Vision. Chapter 11. Break the body, break the bond. The ride back to the house was silent. Natalie drove, her hands gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. Dylan sat in the back, watching the shadows outside the window like something might leap from them at any moment. Mason sat in the passenger seat, eyes locked on the side mirror. He didn't say anything, because his double was sitting right next to him in the reflection. Not behind, not lurking. Next to him, grinning. When they got home, Mason didn't wait. He went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the light. He stood in front of the mirror for a long time, just breathing. His reflection stared back at him. But behind the surface of the glass, the double watched him more closely now, lips twitching like it was trying to mimic his thoughts before he even formed them.
"I know what you want,"
Mason whispered. The double smiled wider.
"I'm not giving in."
Its smile faltered, just for a second. Downstairs, Natalie and Dylan sorted through the Demon Slayer kit, laying out everything they hadn't used. The comically small pocket mirror, a reflective badge, 2 spritz bottles, one of the absurd anti-possession charms that looked like a bottle cap glued to a shoelace, and the instruction manual.
"Still can't believe this thing works,"
Dylan said, flipping pages.
"Who makes this? Why? Who funds this?"
Lillian,
Natalie said.
she told us there were others, people like Mason. Maybe this kit was for them, or maybe it's a joke that turned into a weapon.
"Either way,"
Dylan muttered.
"I think we're down to the last boss."
Natalie looked up.
We go to the orphanage tomorrow, first light.
Dylan nodded, then added.
"You think Mason's ready for this?"
Natalie paused.
I'm not sure any of us are.
That night, Mason didn't sleep. The double whispered in his dreams, not with words, but with images. Visions of the orphanage burning, of dozens of figures standing in firelight, their faces melting into demonic grins. Over and over again, he saw himself walking into the flames, letting the double take over. When he finally sat up, drenched in sweat, it was still dark. He went outside. The town was quiet, almost too quiet. A stillness that wasn't peace. It was the kind of quiet you heard before a predator struck. Greyford wasn't dying. It was waiting. They left just after dawn. The Greyford Children's Home sat in the woods beyond the edge of town, its broken silhouette rising behind the trees like a haunted memory. The fire had gutted the inside decades ago, but the shell remained, scorched, splintered, and still reeking faintly of smoke after all these years. They parked on the edge of the gravel path, each of them geared up with what little they had: crosses, spritz bottles, pocket mirrors. Mason carried the instruction manual, which now felt less like a joke and more like scripture.
Ready?
Natalie asked. Mason nodded. They pushed open the door. Inside, the halls were warped and rotting, the floor a maze of burned beams and mold-eaten tiles. But the deeper they went, the more the walls started to change. No longer charred, but marked, covered in clawed symbols. Some of them still glowed faintly red. They followed the markings down into the basement. The air turned thick, hard to breathe. And then, in a stone chamber beyond a rusted iron door, they found it. The beacon. It looked like a twisted spire of metal and bone. A jagged sculpture rising from the floor, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Around it, dozens of mirrors were positioned in a circular pattern. The reflections didn't match the room. They didn't match anything. Some of them showed other places. Some showed other versions of themselves. Some didn't reflect anything at all.
Jesus,
Dylan whispered.
it's alive.
Natalie stepped closer.
This is where it all started.
Suddenly, the beacon pulsed, and Mason dropped to one knee, clutching his head. The double inside him screamed. The reflection in the nearest mirror twisted, and Mason saw himself, already half consumed. His eyes were glowing, his skin cracking.
They're trying to merge me.
He gasped.
They're using the beacon to finish it.
We destroy it.
Natalie said, lifting the spritz bottle. Before they could move, shadows erupted from the mirrors. 4 fully merged demons stepped into the room, twisted, fast, snarling. The fight was chaos. Dylan tackled one into the far wall, swinging a metal pipe like a madman. Natalie hurled the spritz into another's face and stabbed it with the cross. Mason barely dodged a claw swipe and retaliated with a fire axe from the emergency box in the hall. The room pulsed again. Mason fell to his knees. The double appeared in the mirror beside him, now fully formed.
You're already mine.
It said.
You just haven't accepted it.
No.
Mason whispered, crawling toward the beacon.
If you fight me, we both die.
The double hissed.
Good.
He reached into his jacket, pulled out the mirror charm from the kit, the one that looked like junk. He smashed it against the base of the beacon. Light exploded. A wail echoed through the chamber, not from the demons, but from the mirrors themselves. One by one, they cracked, shattered, and disintegrated. The beacon pulsed wildly, glowing hot red, and then imploded. The demons screeched in agony, their bodies convulsing, collapsing into ash. The room fell silent. The light dimmed. Mason collapsed onto the floor, gasping, as his double screamed inside him, ripped, torn, separated. And then, gone. Chapter 12. The Last Reflection. Smoke and dust curled in the air as Mason pulled himself to his feet. The beacon was gone, or at least that's what he hoped. The jagged metal tower at the center of the chamber no longer pulsed, but it still hummed, like it wasn't quite dead, just sleeping. He staggered back, the melted remains of the mirror charm still hot in his hand. Natalie reached him first, grabbing his shoulder to steady him.
You good?
He nodded, though he didn't feel good. He felt hollow. But the voice in his head was quiet now. The double, gone. At least for now. Dylan limped over, bruised and bloodied, but alive.
Tell me that was it.
I think so.
Mason said.
I was really hoping for more of a dramatic collapse or some epic explosion.
Dylan muttered, glancing at the beacon's cracked form.
This feels too quiet.
Then, a creak. Footsteps on broken glass. They turned toward the hallway they'd entered through. A figure stepped out from the darkness. It was Todd. His work jacket was open, soaked in sweat. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days, and he was smiling.
Well,
Todd said.
didn't expect you three to make it this far.
Mason's stomach dropped.
Todd?
Natalie raised her weapon instinctively.
What the hell are you doing here?
I work everywhere, remember?
He said, chuckling.
You'd be surprised how many things you can run when no one's paying attention.
Dylan took a step forward.
You part of this?
Oh, I've been part of this a long time.
Todd said.
Long before you saw your first shadow in the mirror.
His skin twitched, just once, but it was enough. Not fully merged, but close,
You're still human.
Mason said. Todd's grin faded.
Not for long.
You could fight it.
Why?
Todd asked, and there was no madness in his voice. Only certainty.
Look at this town. Look at the people. They're broken, bitter, dying inside. The demons didn't invade Mason, they were invited. We wanted something to take it all away.
That's not true.
Todd stepped closer, hand resting on the side of the beacon.
I've seen you,
He said.
dragging yourself to that job you didn't want, drowning in guilt, fighting the same war every night inside your head. That voice in the mirror wasn't the enemy, it was you.
Get away from the beacon.
Natalie warned. Todd ignored her.
They promised something better.
He whispered.
No more suffering, no more regret, just peace, an end to all of it.
An end to everything,
Mason said.
including yourself.
Todd finally looked at him, and for the first time, Mason saw what was left of the man. Not evil, not monstrous, just tired, empty.
I'm ready.
Todd said. Then he lunged. Natalie fired a shot from the Slayer kit, a pressurized spray of holy water and something unknown, and Todd reeled back, screaming. Dylan charged him, swinging a crowbar hard across his chest, knocking him into the side of the beacon. It pulsed violently. Cracks shot through the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. And then Todd stood again, eyes now glowing faintly red, face warped in fury. The beacon was trying to complete the merge. Mason ran straight at him. They collided, grappling in front of the burning structure. Todd clawed at Mason's face, snarling.
It's already in you too. You're just stalling.
I'm fighting.
Mason growled. He grabbed one of the cracked mirror shards from the ground and pressed it into Todd's chest. The mirror hissed. Todd screamed, and then the light consumed them both. When Mason opened his eyes, the beacon was gone. The mirrors were shattered. Todd's body lay motionless, eyes closed, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Natalie rushed to Mason's side.
You're okay.
I think it's over.
Mason said. Dylan slumped against the wall.
So, how about we never speak of this again?
Mason looked around the ruined chamber. There were no more demons, no more whispers, only silence. Epilogue. Static. The room was still. No ash, no screaming, no demons clawing at the veil of reality. Just Mason, slumped on the couch, blinking himself awake. His head throbbed with a hangover so deep it felt like it came from another lifetime. His mouth was dry, his thoughts fuzzy, and the early morning light slashed through the blinds like a warning he couldn't quite decode. He sat up slowly, wincing at the soreness in his limbs. Everything ached. He rubbed his eyes and looked around the living room. Nothing was broken. No scorch marks, no demon dust, no sign of the beacon or the orphanage or Todd's final scream. Just silence and the smell of old couch cushions. It was like nothing had happened, or like everything had happened and been erased He leaned forward, trying to piece it together. The mirrors, the merging, the kit, the infomercial. It had all felt so real. Too real. Now it was slipping. His eyes drifted to the coffee table. There it was, Dylan's flask, sitting exactly where it had been the first night this started. Mason stared at it for a moment, a dry chuckle crawling up his throat.
Guess he forgot it.
He muttered.
His loss.
He picked it up and unscrewed the top. The burn on his tongue was familiar. Sharp, metallic, and strangely warm. He took another sip, longer this time. Something inside him twitched. Maybe it was just the hangover. He stood and wandered toward the bathroom, dragging his feet across the carpet like a man waking from surgery. The light flicked on with a soft buzz. He looked into the mirror and stopped. His double was there. Not behind him this time, not beside him. Half of his reflection had already changed. The skin grayer, the grin sharper, the eyes glowing faintly red. Mason stared. The double stared back, and it smiled. Slowly, it began to merge with his reflection, crawling across the glass like ink in water. His chest rose and fell. He couldn't move. Then, from the living room, the television turned on. The familiar voice returned, cheerful and way too loud for this hour.
Are demons haunting your house, seeing things that aren't there? You, my friend, need the Demon Slayer Deluxe Kit.
Mason didn't turn around. The reflection kept merging. Then, as the jingle faded, the voice shifted, lower, director, like it was speaking only to him.
Welcome back, Mason. Round 2 begins now.
He blinked, and the screen cut to static. Thank you for listening to the Halloween Podcast Presents. If you're enjoying these tales of fright, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you have any questions, comments, or want to suggest a story idea, send us an email at thehalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, head on over to our website, thehalloweenpodcast.com, and pick up some podcast merch. You can also download the entire audiobook now, as well as all our other stories. Join us again next week as we continue our tales. Until next time, this is Lyle Perez saying, have a good night.